Hello, Luke.
Hello, Phil. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the use of money and other currencies to pay for things, and the differences between those things in different countries. That might be a little vague. Maybe if we could come up with some words that would describe what I am describing better than
the words that you are describing the thing you're describing with.
Yes. Anyway, let me talk a little bit about how Japan is, and then maybe you can talk a little bit about how China is.
I'm assuming if people are listening to this, they know a little bit about currency, they know a little bit about money, and because we're both from America, we both kind of assume that A, everyone understands American currency, and B, everyone listening is probably American. I know those aren't great assumptions.
I think they're pretty safe.
Maybe we should take just a quick step back and introduce the Japanese currency. What is it called? What are the denominations? And how does it compare to American currency?
Sure. So Japanese people use the yen. They call it the N, but that's because they used to have a yes sound and now it's just an S sound. Fun fact. But you can get a 1 yen coin, a 5, a 10, a 50, a 100, and a 500. And then you can have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000 yen bills. And about 100 yen is $1. That's how it usually is around. Sometimes the yen is worth more, sometimes it's worth less. It makes for easy conversion in your head because you're like, this 100 yen coin's worth $1. This 50 yen coin is worth 50 cents, etc.
So a yen is kind of, think of it like a penny.
Yeah. Except our pennies are copper and theirs are aluminum and feel like garbage and nothing takes them. And their best use is probably to throw them at things.
Which is how we view the penny here. Except our copper pennies are more expensive to make than they are worth.
Right. And the reason why it's kind of important to know what their coins and dollars are is because Japanese people actually are one of the biggest users of cash currency in the world. Compared to other countries, they use 2.5 times as much cash as Americans do relative to their GDP, which is a weird statistic.
That's a weird stat.
But basically what that means is they're using money 2.5 times as much as we are, relatively speaking. That's why you compare it to GDP, because obviously the United States is using more money because we have 4 times as many people. There are a good number of reasons for that. One of them is that Japanese credit cards aren't like American credit cards. In general, banks kind of are not great in Japan. Haley and I got our first interest money maybe 6 months into living in Japan. I believe we got 1 yen, and that was for at least a couple $1,000s worth of money. So the interest rate was like less than 1%. We pay $1 every time we go to the bank's ATM outside of banking hours, which are shorter than business hours. So you show up at, say, like 7 a.m., that's $1. You show up at 6 p.m., that's $1. You show up on the weekend, that's $1.
When you say $1, you mean 100 yen or?
Yeah, it's 108 yen, because it's also taxed. Since you're not making any real money by leaving your money in the bank, and you're spending money to take it out, and crime is pretty low in Japan, it's almost always worth it just to have like $1,000 worth of yen in your pocket. And so you aren't paying interest. You're not really losing any money because the interest rates are low. Japanese people care about privacy a little more than a lot of other countries do. And so the being anonymous is important to them. And so just being able to pay in cash for everything is sort of a boon as well. But at the same time, instead of credit cards, a lot of Japanese people use basically like prepaid cash cards. You can use them at most train stations, not out here in the country, but a lot of big cities. When I studied abroad in Osaka, it was so nice to just have this little Ikoka card. I loaded up with like $20 worth of yen. And every time I wanted to go to the train station, I just tap it on the thing and it lets me through. I don't have to think about where I'm going or how much it's going to cost. And nowadays, I could also tap that on most vending machines and pay for things at most convenience stores. For most of the daily necessities outside of like groceries, you could just use a single prepaid card.
So everything is still pretty cash-based and little tap cards. They don't do credit cards. Are they doing stuff with mobile phones?
Mobile phones are starting to come in to play too. You have to remember there's a huge divide between the rural areas and like Tokyo. And there's also a huge divide between chains and big well-known brands and mom and pop shops. So I don't think I've seen a single store anywhere that was owned by like a old couple or something that accepted a credit card.
Okay.
And like they're pretty much all just using an old register and cash. A lot of the newer places, like your convenience stores like Lawson and Family Mart, McDonald's will have it. They have like a huge variety of ways to pay. You could do credit card, phone pay, cash, prepaid cards. Any way you can get your money to them, they'll take it.
You were mentioning the different bills that they have and the different coins they have. And I wondered if you wanted to comment or tell a little bit about the color and design of the bills, and are they the same size? And if there's anything about the coins, I know some of the coins have like holes in the middle.
Right.
Do you know anything about why that is, or?
I can speak to some of that. In terms of bills, I'm pretty sure, I don't have a 1,000 yen bill lying around to check, but I'm pretty sure the 1,000 yen bills are slightly shorter on one end than the 5,000 and the 10,000, but I'm not positive. In terms of coins, the 1 yen coin is very small. Then the 5 and 10 yen, or the 5 yen coin's a little bit bigger and has a hole in the middle. The 10 yen coin is the same size as the 100 yen coin, but copper instead of whatever, I don't know, zinc the 100 yen coin is. The 50 yen coin is smaller like the 5 yen coin and also has a hole through it, but that one's sort of a zinc whatever. And then the 500 yen coin is this large golden color coin that's like, I don't know, an inch across. It's bigger than a quarter and weighs like a hefty amount. But I'm pretty sure the reason for the holes in the coins is kind of like a holdover from a long time ago. They used to string coins onto a stick or something, so that you could have like a set of them that would be worth a certain amount. They don't do that anymore, but the design has held since then. As
somebody who doesn't interact with this on a regular basis, it is fascinating to me.
It's also really nice because then you can sort of distinguish the 5 and 50 from the other ones by feel.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just feeling around and you feel a coin, you're like, this one's smaller, it must be a 50 or a 5, and you can pull it out. Because coin purses are still very much a thing here.
Yeah.
Coins just mean so much more when you have a 500 yen coin and a 100 yen coin worth like $5 and $1. So you see something that's like $8 and you don't whip out your wallet and whip out some bills, but you reach into your coin purse and pull out 4 coins and you can pay for it.
Yeah. And coins last so much longer than bills do too.
Right.
It's probably pretty economical to continue to use them. It's just, I'm looking at some photos here of some of the different bills, and it's kind of crazy to see so many zeros after the number.
Yeah. Korean money, actually, from my short stint there, has an even worse issue with that. I believe they're one order of magnitude even further away. So I remember trying to convert some yen to, what do the Koreans use? Won?
A won.
And getting like 5,000 or 7,000 won in change for like the hamburger I bought or something, and being like, sheesh, how do you deal with large numbers? I read a very interesting article in Japanese by a lady who emigrated from Japan to China.
Okay.
And she was talking about sort of how one perception Chinese people have of Japanese people is that they don't use credit cards or like prepaid cards or phone pay. I don't remember if it was phone pay was so popular in China, according to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would come on these big tour groups to Japan and then be really upset because all the places they would go to wouldn't accept their phone pay. And they'd be like, what is this backwards country that's supposed to be super high-tech and advanced, but we can't pay with our phones?
That's really interesting, because when you think of Japan, you think of like robots and high-tech everything, because that's the anime propaganda they send out all the time. That's what is happening over there. But even I was at a mechanic the other day, and I made some comment about something, I don't remember, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's what they're doing in Japan now. They're all paying with phones." And I just smiled and nodded to him. But apparently the rumor is that in Japan it's all high tech, but really their high techness is just in their paper currency.
It's funny for me to hear like Japan being high tech, because they definitely have certain things like, they have the high speed rail system, earthquake warning system, where they can predict an earthquake like maybe even 10 or 15 seconds ahead of time sometimes and warn everyone to get to a safe place. Mm-hmm. They have all sorts of systems that are pretty modern. And then on the other hand, even new companies made in like 2011 are faxing their information to each other on fax machines, and they're posting their fax number on their website. It's just like this relic of the past where it's like they're receiving faxes by email even. There's a fax to email system. So some companies that don't do email, they like email them a fax. I don't know how it all works. You're like, we haven't needed fax machines for almost 30 years now. So the fact that you're still using them is strange. I don't remember the name of the scholar or when he's from, but I think he was an early 1900s Japanese scholar who said that the Japanese people as a culture don't like to change, but when they see change being necessary, they are very quick to adapt to the new thing. And that was the case quite a few times in Japanese history. And I'm sure as soon as there becomes a reason to not need fax machines anymore, all the companies will switch over. And, systems of payment as well. As soon as there's a reason to not use cash or a reason to start taking phone pay, the switch will be swift and clean. But tell me about China, because I don't know anything about China.
Okay. Chinese money is fascinating to me. They actually use a lot of cash as well. The thing I love about the Chinese money is it comes in different sizes and it comes in different colors. So this is like, it is as close as you can get to Monopoly, except all the notes are different sizes. The Chinese money is called renminbi, literally translates to people's currency, because ren is man, and I don't know the rest. Colloquially, people refer to the money as kwai. It's also called yuan. And kwai just means piece, so it's just like, it's a piece of money. So it's just like little tiny chunks. So you got all the different colors, and you have the one renminbi, one yuan, one kwai.
Right.
And that is a small green bill. It's kind of a moss green color.
I think I've seen one of those before.
Yeah, and they're pretty tiny. They're bigger than Monopoly money, but they're a kind of a nice little size. And then a little bit bigger is a purple bill, and that's a 5 kwai. And then a little bit bigger than that is a blue one, which is 10 kwai. And a little bit bigger than that is an orangish yellow, which is 20. And then the larger than that is a green, and it's more of a teal green, and that's a 50. And then your big one is red, and that's 100. So you got 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100. They break down the bills into 0.5 and 0.1. Instead of having pennies, nickels, and dimes, it's more like just having dimes.
Okay, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, so sometimes they do list prices with like the 2 zeros after the decimal place, but really in practice, it's the 1 0 after the decimal place. And they actually have bills for this. They have a 0.1 bill, which is called the 1 jiao, and they have a 5 jiao, which is basically like a 50-cent piece and a 10-cent piece. But they actually have paper versions of it.
That's weird.
It is, and it's just like this garbage paper that's really tiny, and it's not worth anything. And then they have coins. You have your 1 renminbi coin, and your 0.5 renminbi, and your 0.1. So you have 1, 0.5, and 1. And I guess the 0.2, they actually at one point in time had a paper bill, which was a 0.2. But that's all old. They don't do that anymore. The physical denominations are just kind of fun to look at and play with. They're all different sizes. It's all a little crazy. But it's also a very strange conversion
To USD?
to US dollars. $1 is worth about 6.5 Chinese renminbi.
That's not something you can usually do in your head real quickly.
Yeah, so the way I usually did it, which I don't think anyone else really followed this at all, I would always think 100, the red banknote, the 100 is worth 16 US dollars.
Okay.
So I always knew, like, oh, is this 50 kwai for this? Oh, that's about half of 16. So that's 8.
Okay.
Or it's, 25 would be your 4, that range. You very quickly switched to just working entirely in renminbi and not thinking at all in US dollars. I got into a little bit of trouble because the currency symbol is this kind of like a Y with some lines in it.
Right. I think it's the same as the yen.
Yeah, it's not one that shows up on keyboards.
Oh.
If you're digging for it in the keyboard on your phone, like even the Chinese keyboards that I put on my iPhone, for some reason, they still had a dollar sign. So like trying to figure out where this symbol was, like I just ended up using a dollar sign, and that confused people because then they thought I was talking about US dollars.
That is strange. Yeah, even my Japanese keyboard has a yen symbol. It's got like a yen key.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So I actually just change my phone to autocorrect. If I typed RMB, it would just autocorrect that to the symbol.
Ah, clever.
Yeah. Something I found very interesting about the currency in China is it's embossed in a way. If you feel the collar of all of the currency has Mao on the front of it. Mm-hmm. It has some interesting artwork on the back. We can talk about that in a bit. But if you have a new crisp banknote and you feel the collar on Mao, it's textured.
Interesting.
And you can tell counterfeit bills because they're not textured. So at one point in time, somebody gave me change in the form of a 20, and the bill was either a counterfeit bill, which it might be, or it had just gotten so old that it was worn down and it wasn't textured anymore. So when I tried to use that bill at a store, the person took it from me, felt it, handed it back to me, and refused payment.
Fun.
Yeah, so I actually have a counterfeit 20, well, presumably counterfeit 20 renminbi as a souvenir.
Well, that's always fun.
So does the Japanese currency, to your knowledge, does it have counterfeit measures? I mean, I assume it has counterfeit measures.
It's actually crazy secure. I want to say there's 4 watermarks on it. The biggest one being they all have a person on the one side, and then there's like a circle in the middle for a person to be. And then if you hold it up to the light, you can see pretty clearly that there's whether or not there's a watermark of the same person. And then the Ichiman bill, the US equivalent of $100, has a thing on the side. Let me see if I can pull it out so I can describe it properly. It's like a holographic thing that says, it's got like a target in it, and it says 10,000, and it's got flowers, and depending on how you're holding it, it shows you all of those. And then it also has like I don't know if it's an ultraviolet printing on the right side, but it's like a purple reflective thing that makes it very clear that it's a expensive bill. I don't know if you could fake one of these to any degree other than making a paper version without spending more than $100 worth of materials. It looks like it took a lot of money to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're pretty secure, and that's another reason why Japanese people love cash so much, is they don't have to worry about counterfeits.
It is a very beautiful looking currency. It's kind of they're all kind of on a brownish sepia paper.
They all have slightly different hues, but not super any color.
Yeah.
And the 2000 bill doesn't actually circulate. A lot of places don't even take it, but they have it because America and China both have a bill like that. And so it makes, especially for US money exchanges, a lot of times people will use $20 bills. And then I don't know why, but sometimes you'll exchange money and get some 2,000 yen bills, and then you'll struggle to find places that even take them because small places are like, is that real?
Oh.
Yeah. So
What would I do with this?
yeah.
So it's mainly just the 1,000, 5,000, 10,000?
Yeah, and it's the same with the money. It's a 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, 500.
Okay.
And it's slightly less efficient than our quarter system for some things, but since they have a 50, it's not at all. Unless you need like 49 cents or something, I'm pretty sure at most you're going to be spending like 1 coin for 50, 4 for 90, and then 1 for 5, and then 4 for 9. So 10 coins at most, basically, for any amount under 100 yen. And then like maybe 15 to 20 for anything under 1,000 yen.
Yeah. So it's got the Japanese currency has people on the front and just kind of floral designs or...
Yeah. The 10,000 bill has a chicken. I'm sure it has more historical significance than I am aware. And then it's got Fukuzawa. I can't read his name. Something Yoshi. He's probably pretty important.
So the back of all of the Chinese bills have different landscapes or scenes.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
On the back of the 20 is a scene of the karsts.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, a karst is kind of like a rounded mountain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. It's the stuff from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, be from Dragon Ball Z. It's probably the closest approximation to the hills in the Mario games in the background. It's just these rounded kind of lumps.
Yeah, they're famous.
Yeah, I had never heard of them. Like, I didn't know what these things were. But there was a place relatively close to where I was staying. It was a day by train. Or a half day by train or whatever to get out there.
In southern China?
Yeah, in southern China. That is the scene from the back of the 20. And so when all of the interns or the Chinese students or basically anybody who would travel out there and take a photo with the 20 renminbi bill from the location that the scene on the bill is painted.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, so it was kind of a neat thing because people could do that with the 50 because the 50 is in Tibet, the Potala Palace. Potala Palace.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really seen it either, but it's apparently a really famous place. So again, the people who travel there would hold the bill up. I don't know where all the other ones were from, and I'm sure people did that too, but it was the few iconic ones were kind of neat.
That is cool. It's kind of fun to have famous places. I suppose U.S. bills do something kind of similar. Got the Lincoln Memorial on one.
Yep.
I don't know what's on the back of the other ones. $50 and $100 is a lot of money.
Yeah, yes it is. How easy was it to switch over into the yen mindset?
Super easy because, it's just move the decimal point or remove it, I guess. Add it back in to thinking in dollars. The most confusing thing is the constant, I guess you could call it code switching between American and Japanese currency units. So I'll be talking with Haley and be like, yeah, but it's like $100. And then she'll be like, maybe if it was 2,000 yen cheaper. And then, just like not staying consistent with what currency we're working in, which can kind of mess you up when you're talking certain numbers. And then if you say the wrong one, you'd be like, well, it was $800 or, it was 50 yen. That one's less common because it's weird to talk about small units of yen.
Yeah. What has been the most surprising thing in terms of, has there been anything that feels like is really cheap? Or anything that feels like it's obscenely expensive?
Stuff from China is really cheap here because the shipping costs are so low. So it's just like in the US, you can go to the dollar store, except there are a lot more of them. And the quality's a little higher because they can ship it for so much cheaper. On the other hand, there are just certain things in Japanese culture that are considered like party foods that are needlessly expensive because people consider them to be like specialties. So pizza and melons are the two big ones. If you've never seen an $80 cantaloupe before, it looks just like a $3 cantaloupe from Walmart and probably tastes the same, but you can buy it at a store.
What?
An $80 cantaloupe, like a melon.
Yeah, 80 US dollars?
8,000 yen. And it's not special. It's something you buy as a gift or you have it at a party or a group event. Watermelons are usually around 3,000 yen, so $30 minimum.
So it's a status symbol.
Potentially. I guess they don't import enough because they're a specialty good, and so they just stay really expensive, even though a lot of the melons we eat in the United States are imported from like the Philippines, which is closer to Japan. So it's a mystery. And at the same time, pizza is crazy expensive here. The first time Haley and I ordered Domino's when we were in Hiroshima, it was about 5,000 yen total. So that's $50 US. And we got a large and a medium pizza. Larges here are the size of American mediums, and mediums are the size of an American small. So if you can imagine ordering a medium and a small pizza from Domino's for $50 with no special toppings or anything else included, that's the price of cheap pizza here.
Wow, that is really expensive.
When Haley and I were in Tokyo, we went to a place called, what's it called? Something weird. It was like Stumpy's. It wasn't Stumpy's, but it was like Stockies, I don't know, something like that. And it was crammed full of people because it was an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet for like 1,500 yen, so $15.
Wow.
The slices were very small. They were laughably small. Think your 2 fingers put together is one slice. But I had like maybe 30 to 40 slices, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So cheap pizza does exist, but you have to be in like Tokyo to get it.
Do they do cheese over there? Like, do they just have cheese as a food?
It's considered like a luxury food, sort of. So unless you're getting like the small little bite-sized cheeses, a lot of the times you can buy like, here's a small chunk of cheddar cheese for $8 or so. So it's like if you took all the cheese in America, doubled the price, and cut it in half in terms of amount, that's what cheese is like here.
Because in China, the only place that you find cheese is at a market that sells imported goods.
Really? They don't do cheese?
I don't think I ever saw cheese in a normal store. And I certainly never had it on food unless I was going to like Pizza Hut or somewhere where they specifically make a cheese food.
Right. Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it to be honest, it took me about 3 months to realize that there was no cheese anywhere. It just doesn't, like, most of their foods, I think, are kind of, cuisine-wise, kind of clash a little bit with the cheese.
Right.
They just don't need it for their cooking.
Peanut butter is expensive, too. You can't normally buy peanut butter in a lot of places. Our big grocery store doesn't sell any. So we went to a different place for it, and they stopped carrying it. They don't have it anymore, for now at least. So then we found another place that sold these little baby jars. Let's see here. How big is this? 227 grams, so a half a pound of peanut butter, which sounds like a lot, but it's maybe like 4 inches tall and like 2.5 inches around. So it's like the size of a baseball.
Yeah.
Of peanut butter. This stuff was cheap. It was like 100 yen. But have you ever had those like Ritz cracker sandwiches that have like that weird fake peanut butter in them?
Yeah.
It doesn't taste right? That's where they get the peanut butter from, apparently, because that's exactly what it tastes like. It's got like this sort of grainy texture. I don't know how you get peanut butter wrong. It's like 3 ingredients. You can make it at home. It doesn't need a preservative. You just mash up peanuts, add some oil, and then some sugar if you're really adventurous.
Huh. So living in China, I was very confused because the conversion rate was really weird, but you also didn't always expect to be paying what you were paying. Because things like peanut butter, I think it was probably in the 30 to 40 renminbi for a jar.
Yikes.
In that range. So you're talking $6 to $8 maybe? Which isn't, I mean, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, here it's probably just double.
Yeah.
What you're paying here. When I went to Starbucks, I'd be paying 50 renminbi for a coffee, which is about, again, in $7 to $8. A cappuccino was like 30 or something. So I mean, you're talking a $4 or $5 coffee, which actually is pretty much what you're usually spending at Starbucks.
Right.
It felt really expensive because you get the receipt and it's like, here's 50 currency units for a coffee and a muffin. And you're like, that's a lot. It's like, well, actually in US dollars, it's almost exactly the same price.
Right. Yeah, that would be confusing. See, with us, it's like, you go to Starbucks, we both get a coffee and maybe something to eat, and then it's like 2,200 yen. And then you do the conversion and you're like, that's like $22. That,
Yeah.
you don't have to do any extra steps.
A lot of times when I would go out to eat, because I went to a lot of restaurants and I went to the same restaurants over and over again, I just kind of ahead of time made the declaration that I'm going to spend a lot of money and I'm okay with spending it on food. Because out of all the things you could spend money on, food is a great thing to do that with.
Right.
While a lot of the people I was with were trying to spend as little money as possible, and they were like trying to find meals for 10 kwai, I was spending closer to 18 to 20 for most of my meals. Now, 10 kwai is about $1.50 in US dollars.
Right.
20 kwai is hovering around the $3 mark. So it's like I was eating really good food, like handmade noodles made on the spot right there for me.
Right.
For 18 to 20 kwai, which is $3 US, and it's just phenomenal. The food I could get. At the same time, if you then want to like, I'll have some juice to go along with this meal or something, and you get like the fresh homemade juice right there, it's another like 15 kwai. So it's like a $2 juice, really cheap juice, but it's almost the same cost as the meal I'm eating. So you're instantly doubling your meal.
Yeah.
To get a different, depending on the drink to go with it.
That's how they get you.
It is. A 300 milliliter, that's about a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola, name brand Coca-Cola, was 2.4 renminbi.
What is that in US dollars?
So it's like basically 37 cents. 1 Chinese yuan is 15 cents.
Right.
So for 2.4, which is roughly 38 cents, somewhere in that range, you could get a can of Coca-Cola. For 2.8, you could get a half liter. And a lot of times with the half liters and some of those other ones, they're like, they would give you more. So they're like giving you 550 or 600 milliliters. And so I found myself many times, I go into the store and there's a can of Coke. I'm like, I don't want a lot of Coca-Cola. And you're looking down the aisle and there's a small 300 milliliter coffee, like a cold frozen coffee bottled. And it's 8 renminbi, which is about $1.23. You can get a juice or a tea, which is going to be somewhere around that same 8 range. Or you can get a bottle of Coca-Cola, which is less than 3, has twice as much liquid there, and it is less than half the cost. And so I found myself drinking a lot of half liters of Coca-Cola.
Sounds like you've had a very healthy time in China.
Oh, it was. I never got sick.
It's actually really impressive.
When I visited you in Japan, one of my favorite parts was the vending machines with the bottles. Refresh my memory on what the cost for those little...
Vending machines basically assume you're going to put in 100 yen at least. I've never seen one for under 100 yen that's still in operation. Sometimes I'll see like there's an old potato vending machine down by the shore that I love, but I don't think it's working anymore. And some of those things are like 30 or 40 yen. But basically, it's 100 yen for like the cheapest things when they're like advertising, like this water is 100 yen. And then probably 110 for most things, 130 for nice things, and then 150 or 160 for like the larger sizes or like the specialty whatevers. Some of them have other special things too, like at least one has a lottery system where every time you order a drink, it plays a game of slots and you have a chance to win a second drink for free. And there's like a 90% chance of getting the first 3 numbers as 7 based on my experience with that vending machine. So it was definitely preying on gambler types. But yeah, nothing as cheap as a 30 or 40 yen drink.
Okay. Oh, that was something I didn't touch on. So yeah, I talked about the coins and the dollar bills, the currency. Mobile payments, you kind of mentioned this, mobile payments are huge in China. In fact, they kind of skipped credit cards. Like, we got bank cards, and I think a lot of people have bank cards, but you don't usually use the bank card to pay for things. You use it to get cash out of the ATM.
Right.
But a lot of the payments are done through WeChat or Alipay.
Interesting.
It's QR codes. So you go up to the little vendor the little window, and there's these QR codes either on the window or on the counter, and you open your phone, and everything is done in WeChat. And so you open up WeChat and you scan the QR code, and it shows the account of the people, the business or whatever, and you put in the amount that they tell you the thing costs, and you click send, and you show them your phone screen to show, hey, I sent you this, and they recognize it on their phone or their point of sale device, and they see the money come through, and the transaction is complete.
That's kind of nice.
It's amazing, and you could send money through to friends just through chat. Mm-hmm. And so when you go out for a meal or something, one person pays and one person takes care of the pay, and that people can pay you back over through WeChat. It's kind of interesting because most places don't have cash registers.
That's kind of weird.
A lot of stores do, but there's so many like street vendors where they just have a pouch. And even the one restaurant I've frequented all the time, it's a halal restaurant. There's no pork. The handmade noodles, it was all beef and lamb. Mm-hmm. I went there a lot, but basically they had a little fanny pack to store all their money. And one of the two owners, either him or his wife or whoever, would always have that, and they would count out the change out of that. So they had no cash register at all at this restaurant. There were a few times where you go into a place and like the person doesn't seem to have cash. Maybe they do have a register or whatever, a drawer where they keep their money, and they don't seem to have correct change there. So they'll just like pull out their own money to exchange.
It's funny because in all your stories about China, in some ways it feels like it's like this undeveloped country where they're pulling money out of their pockets and like they don't have cash registers, and on the other hand they're paying with their phones through internet services. And I think Japan's sort of the same way, where there's these elements of like still being in the past, and then these other elements where you're like, it's the future here.
Yeah, very much. In the US, we tend to get kind of caught up with the swing of technology. It's like to hear that people are still using faxes and stuff, and people still use cash. It's like, well, since Square and some of these other companies came out a couple years ago, everybody, whether you're a single person or a full corporation, you can have a little slider on an iPad to accept credit cards. Mm-hmm. And these other places in other countries haven't done that yet. Which isn't to say that they're behind the times. It's just to say that here we find stuff and we push it whether we really need to or not.
Yeah, that sounds like the United States.